Thank you, Holly, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the DataVista 3.0 webinar focused on the California Adult Education Program dashboard. Next slide, please. So before we get started, I'd like to briefly introduce today's presenters. First off, my name is Myra Diaz, and I serve as the program lead for the California Adult Education Program within the Workforce and Economic Development Division at the California Community College Chancellor's Office. And we are joined by our partners from West Ed, Debbie Pizzuto, Senior Program Associate, and Adriel Garcia, Program Associate with West Ed, who have been deeply involved in supporting CAEP implementation, data analysis, technical assistance, and DataVista development. Next slide, please. This work truly reflects a collaborative statewide effort, and we're excited to share today's information with you all. Today's session is really about helping all of us better understand the story our data tells, not just for reporting purposes, but for improving outcomes for adult learners across California. We will be walking through how CAEP data is collected, integrated and displayed within DataVista, and we'll also demonstrate how local programs and consortia can use these tools to support planning, accountability, and continuous improvement. So we appreciate your time and partnership in this work. There is a quick overview of today's agenda in which we will be providing some background and context around CAEP and the importance of statewide adult education data. And we'll conclude with live demonstrations and leave time at the end for questions and discussion. Next slide, please. All right, so the work we are discussing today is grounded in legislation and statewide collaboration. Following AB 104, the Chancellor's Office and the California Department of Education were tasked with establishing common accountability measures across adult education systems. That included developing shared core metrics, common assessment practices, measures of effectiveness to be used in reports to the legislature, and data sharing agreements that allow us to better understand student outcomes across systems. This collaboration laid the foundation for the integrated data environment we now see within DataVista. It has also created a more unified and transparent approach to measuring adult learner success statewide. Next slide, please. So why is this data important under the California Adult Education Program? At its core, data helps us establish a common language around student success. It helps us answer important questions such as who are we serving? What outcomes are learners achieving? Where are there gaps or opportunities for improvement? And data also supports accountability and transparency across our consortia. Most importantly, it allows us to make more informed decisions that strengthen services for adult learners within our regions. Ultimately, the goal is not simply collecting data, it's using data to improve learner outcomes and strengthen pathway to education and employment. Next slide, please. All right, gonna hand it over to Debbie.
I'll go ahead and actually take this
Oh,
one, Myra. Hi, everyone. I am off screen right now. I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I just wanted to mention that I'm not going to be on screen, so you won't see my face, but I am here, promise. Thank you, Myra, for kind of setting up the background as to why we're paying attention to the California Adult Education Program data and really some of the legislation that was pulled from earlier years to set the precedent for having this data available and how we utilize it within DataVista. I'm going to cover various aspects on this CAEP data. That's really going to have the framing of what it's utilized and how it's utilized or how it's flowing throughout DataVista itself, the platform that we utilize. So you'll see me kind of go across various aspects within DataVista. I'm actually going to, toggle between our PowerPoint and the website itself. And then a little bit later, as you might have seen in the agenda, we do have Debbie, who's a partner here at West Ed, we'll go through some use cases specifically, but I'm going to go directly into certain spots as to where to highlight some of this CAEP data and go over some of the more recent updates. So I'm going to continue into maybe some information that you all might be familiar with. For those of you that might have utilized DataVista, or for those of you that might be in the field and have had some time here, these are really the data sources that we're utilizing for our California Adult Education Program scorecard. There is a couple of other information, such as National Student Clearinghouse and UC CSU transfer information that gets some information for our post-secondary outcomes, such as transfer and matriculation. But these are the core ones, right? And maybe these are a lot of the aspects that you all might be familiar with. For a lot of the metric makeup that we have within DataVista, we're utilizing, again, I mentioned some other aspects when we're thinking about transfer, like such as National Student Clearinghouse. There's some UI wage data that's utilized for employment outcomes. But when we're thinking about the realm of metrics such as participants, such as reportable individuals, we're taking this information from CASAS and Chancellor's Office Management Information System. So a lot of this information is, being melded together to represent sort of both of these sources and how you're seeing the data represented within DataVista. As far as a flow standpoint, this is really how it's kind of being produced into this product that all of you might utilize that's publicly available. So we're getting information from K-12 adult schools, from CCs. It's being, integrated into the sources such as CASA's TOPS Pro Enterprise, Chancellor's Office Management Information System. And our metric development team kind of churns and creates this information and produces the metrics that you all see utilizing these two sources, as well as some other sources. But when we're thinking about the CAEP data and how it's represented, this is really how we're seeing these outcomes being part of what is represented on the dashboard. So this information is sort of joined together, coded together to have a representative of students across both of these systems. And then we're seeing these aggregated counts and records being produced in DataVista. So everything, for those of you that are familiar, you've heard this many times before, but for those that aren't familiar, this is all publicly available for suppressed data. We're never going to get into like the specific student identifiers that you'd see on this dashboard. But a lot of this is aggregated so that if there's any point in which we're having low counts of students, we're going to suppress that. So you won't see some data points, but we're matching our records across these two sources, utilizing sort of a method that our metric development team has, name, first name, last name, gender, and date of birth, to reduce the deduplication and capture outcomes such as, post-secondary transitions or reportable individuals or cases like that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's a match that's kind of occurring with this UI wage data. And I'll point out in a couple of slides some of the outcome metrics that you'll be able to see to be able to kind of have this understanding of what your students and how their journeys are going on. But that UI wage data is being supplemented into this matching process, into this data metric curation process to be able to see all these outcomes. Some get pushed to the CAEP Ledge report, and a good majority of this is, again, how we mention and see it publicly available on DataVista. I do want to, I've heard this kind of questions, and actually Myra has brought this to our team every now and then, so I thank her for, kind of plugging this in. And I want to show you all a little bit of like the technicality. And I'm not going to go super deep onto it, but I'm going to give you all one of the tools that we utilize within DataVista to be able to understand what are these data sources sort of coming from and how are they melding, and what is the curation in terms of MIS elements or maybe CASA's Top Pro elements. So currently where I am at within our website, and I'll go back one, but for a lot of my demonstrations that I'm going to jump directly to the pages, just because we have, again, a publicly available dashboard that has billions and billions of records displaying metrics across various Chancellor's Office and California Community College system outcomes. So, we're today focused on CAEP. There's other information focused on SWP, SEP. We have information focused on K-12 SWP, student athletics, a multitude of information. So when you see and when you kind of experience Data Vista, there's a lot of churning of data that's occurring. So just giving you all that context as to why I'm jumping directly. Debbie a little bit later will demo some of the exact navigation starting from, landing on the page to getting to the views. I'm going to skip a little bit of that right now, and I'm going to focus on our metric definition dictionary, which is located at the top. And for those that might be familiar with Launchboard in the past, we had metric definition dictionaries in the form of Word documents, and they give all the background information, all the notes, source element information, construction of how a metric is created and calculated, all within a long kind of document. And we've made it a web page. So again, I might be saying information that's familiar to a lot of people, but what I'm going to do is when you're looking at CAEP adult education learners, we utilize a lot of like sort of I should say codes to identify our student groups. For all of you here, you want to know that anytime there is a metric that ends in A, that is for all of you, for adult learners, right? So I want to give you all a little bit of the background, and maybe you can find some usefulness in doing your own exploration. But I'm going to give a quick and dirty really right here on what I mean by having this CASAS TOPS Pro information and data source melded with this COMIS information here. And what I'm going to focus specifically on, I should have just typed it in, but I'm scrolling right now. I'm going to our reportable individuals. So our reportable individuals, as you can see, I'm not going to read the whole note here, but for those of you that are familiar with this metric, the way that it's being visualized on DataVista is being calculated in two ways. So we have these various TOPS Pro enterprise data elements, and then we have these data COMIS data elements. And there's a specific calculation that is going on. So, we have our students 16 plus with one or more hours. That's sort of one of the criterias. And then enrolled in either of these. So you're going to see this and then all these ORs, right? So if you're not in ESL, you're maybe in ABE or in ASE or CT, etc. Right? But this is one of the these are the main criterias, and this is sort of like the varying other criterias that kind of are allowing you to be counted from the TOPS Pro Enterprise viewpoint, right? So that's one sort of half of this. And then there's the COMIS calculation part of it, which actually has very similar like starting criterias. We're seeing 16 plus. We're actually seeing a student that has a non-credit enrollment, not in supervised tutoring or study skills. And again, COMIS, we're coming from the Community College Chancellor Office standpoint. So you're thinking of the CC system, right? TOPS Pro Enterprise. You might be thinking of adult school system, various other ways. I'm sure you all are maybe a little bit more attuned to some of the details and those differences, but pointing out the CC side of this, right? Having all of those kind of similar, right? Criterias. It's either one of these or ABE or CTE or workforce prep. There's a couple of other different criterias for COMIS. Like we have a couple of top codes that are flagged as vocational or occupational SAM codes. We count those students too, right? So I'm utilizing sort of this kind of quick and dirty to give you this framing of like, this is a large universe of students with varying criterias that kind of create our reportable individuals. So if you're just looking from one of these data source standpoints, either TOPS Pro, Enterprise, or COMIS, you might see a little bit of misalignment, right? Because we're melding these two together, right? I do want to say I am joined by a couple of other individuals on our team. I do want to point out one of them who works very closely alongside us in our metric development team. His name is Eric Cooper. We are going to get into some of the data questions, and I do see a couple of questions in the Q&A, which I haven't looked at just yet because I'm sort of presenting and navigating this right now. So I'll get to them in just a bit, but I wanted to give you all some of that clarity, or at least attempt to give you all some of that clarity so you can do your own digging and understanding, okay, how are my TOPS Pro Enterprise students then being melded with some of these COMIS students, right? So I'm going to return back to our slide deck, and I'll get to some of the questions in a bit, and I believe I might have some support from others on our team, as I mentioned, answering some of these questions in the chat. But that is the start of this data flow and integration for our CAEP adult students. Now, on the next slide, the DataVista metrics, the CAEP information is going to have this alignment with WIOA, right? And I'm going to, again, jump to DataVista in just a bit. But we have all this information available to all of you. It's found in very particular ways, but definitions of reportable individuals and participants, I just gave you one of the definitions for reportable individuals and how that's constructed with that CASAS and COMAS sort of melding. There's a very similar method going on with those participants, right? There's barriers to employment for reportable individuals. And I want to mention there are a variety of barriers of employment. I'll showcase them in just a bit in this next slide. And I'll show you where to locate those, but those are only going to be represented counts of students that are experiencing those barriers of employment. So if you're trying to get an overview of, okay, I have a student that might be flagged as foster youth, and I want to know some other outcomes, there is a little bit of limitation that we have. I mean, I might be corrected by some of our metric development team individuals. Maybe we can kind of go into that, but on the dashboard itself, we're going to see represented records of students that are with these flags, right? When it comes to outcomes, might be a little bit of a deeper dive, but I can at least get you what we have flagged throughout the years at various locales, who has been maybe labeled as foster youth or who has been labeled as low literacy or low income. We do have that, and I'll showcase that in just a bit. There are outcome metrics. So, we think of a lot of some of the outcomes, and I have them in just a few slides, such as, completed a post-secondary credential, things like received a non-credit CTE certificate, right? But because we are doing some of this melding with the COMAS, right? If you're thinking from like a TOPS Pro enterprise standpoint, and we're doing this melding with the COMAS data source, we also are able to look into, for some of these students, outcomes such as earned an associate degree or students that attain the Chancellor's Office Vision for Success. Those are outcomes that are available. Now, we do have alignment with our 6 AE programs I will go into. So it's technically 7 AE programs, but on DataVista, the way we have sort of the construction, it's going to show 6 AE programs. And then there's sort of like a caveat where you actually have to search for a metric that's going to have like, I think it's workforce, apprenticeship. I'll get that specific metric in just a bit. It's in a few slides, but that is available. I am saying 6 here. All of you might be like, oh, there are 7. That 7 is available. It's just constructed in a little bit of a different way on the platform. And then just alignment with other key success metrics. I know we don't, it's kind of separated. It's been passed for quite some time now, this move over from Launchboard, but back on Launchboard, there was student success metrics, and it showed all those students in terms of various outcomes. So we did kind of maintain some of that alignment for these CAEP adult learners, and that's why you kind of see some of these metrics, such as non-credit workforce milestone, that's available within this student group specifically. Remember, I'm saying those A students, that's available within all this. So you can search for a lot of this information that I'm displaying right here on this screen. It's really kind of accessible in that metric definition dictionary, which is why I was kind of starting off with that to sort of set the table, I should say, and you can kind of all see and do your own exploration. But this is where the alignment with WIOA and CAEP kind of exists and how DataVista is creating that, right? So I'm going to step into these in just a bit. And I'm going to start off with our barriers to employment. Again, this is going to be specifically for our reportable individuals. I know, sometimes we're thinking about reportable individuals or participants. I'm specifically focusing, and the way these flags are available on the platform are specifically going to be available for our reportable individuals. We're going to have 2 of them. So it's flagged in the selected year or if ever flagged. So I'm going to jump again. I'm going to go back to our platform. Debbie's going to show, like I said, in a little bit how I got here, but I'm on single metric view for those of you that might be familiar with this. And by default, you're going to, if you have no selections, you don't, switch with any of the locales or AE programs, you just kind of click on the tile and you access here, you're going to hit reportable individuals. Now, for all these barriers to employment information, you can see the trends. If I go into the drill down, And give me 1 second. I think this has to reload. I was on this for quite some time. Again, billions and billions of rows and records. So I'm going to keep saying that every time something goes slow. Billions and billions, right? Going to go to the drill down, and only for this metric specifically, we're going to have these barriers to employment. So if I am interested, and let's just say flagged in the selected year, I'm looking for some of our migrant farm worker students, and this is going to be statewide right now. So I'm just going to look and kind of display this, and we're seeing a little bit over the various years because we just got 24-25 data a few weeks ago. We have these outcomes, right? So that's one thing I just wanted to mention, where you can access some of these barriers to employment. It looks like we're taking a little bit of a dip on 24-25 after hitting somewhat of a peak on 22-23, 23-24. Obviously, there looks like seems to be a rebound for reportable individuals as our migrant farm workers in our system. Again, this is being taken from both of those data sources, and we can go into, that was kind of displayed within that MDD sort of breakdown. But that is available. If I wanted to look at everything for barriers to employment flagged in the selected year, I could select on this blue button. And I know it gets a little bit crowded, but I'm just displaying some of the information here so that you all can see. It seems like our ELL learners, we're having a little bit of a plateau from last year to this previous year, maybe a little bit of a dip, right? I mean, kind of very close, but we have increased post-COVID steadily. And now it seems like there's a little bit of a dip for those, or I should say a little bit of a plateau for those ELL learners. So that is available there. That's flagged in the selected year. Then I can just put if ever flagged. And, I was kind of talking about foster youth earlier. For those individuals working at various institutions, curious about some of these specific barriers, this information is available here. So again, I'm just looking at the counts of students. I'm not looking at, students that we have different metrics, such as, like we said, outcomes, aspects in terms of persistence, right? This is just going to be a little bit limited to the count. So at least you'll get an overview understanding of, like, okay, who are my institutions serving, right? So giving you all sort of that primer so that you can do this exploration. I'm gonna try to be broad and then very narrow in some of these demonstrations. So I'm going to, this is a sort of broader, although we consider single metric to be one of the more, technical ways to dive into the data. We do this exploration and demo fairly frequently, but I'm going to hit on some other tools that you can see that can maybe make some of your analysis somewhat beneficial. I want to say that in some of these features that I'm going to display in just a bit, we are also looking to continuously improve. So one of the things I really like doing is comparisons. And actually, I probably want to showcase this really quick since I'm already on here and I have it loaded. But let's just say I'm going to stick with statewide. So I'm not picking on a specific institution right now. Maybe in the future, if any of you are willing to look at your data live, please let us know so I can do that. But I'm going to stick statewide, and it's going to have a lot of the outcomes right now. But I'm going to look and compare. And let's just say you're at one of your institutions and you want to look across reportable individuals, or maybe you want to look at multiple locales across these reportable individuals. So if you're in the context of, let's not say you're an institution leader, but let's say, for example, you're working for a regional consortium. Okay. And maybe, I think for the most part, a lot of you all know who works where in terms of, like, oh, I know my colleges that I serve. But let's just say you want to, for example, hypothetically take the position of somebody at a consortium, and you want to do some, like, locale analysis to look at barriers to employment across different institutions, right? So for one, I actually put myself in this situation every now and then because I don't know all of the geographic locations of everyone that you all serve. But we do have resources to support. So I'm actually going to duplicate this really quickly. Actually, I don't know if I need to do that, but yeah, I'm going to do that because I want to pull up this CAEP Learner Agency crosswalk. There's Learner Agency crosswalk, which I thought I had it downloaded. I apologize. I'm going to download it, and I'm going to bring it over. Give me 1 second. It's going to give me all the information about our consortiums and their institutions that they serve. Okay, so I'm gonna do this, and I'm sorry if I'm throwing everyone off a little bit, but I wanted to just show this sort of activity as we're going through this right now. I'm gonna display my resource on my right-hand side of the screen so that I know. And I'm just gonna start with at the top. I'm gonna look at some of our two of our institutions right here, Lompoc Unified Adult Education and Allen Hancock College, both in the Allen Hancock Community College Consortium. And I'm going to go back to our comparison view. I'm sorry if this looks a little squished, but please just sit tight while I do this little demonstration. So I'm going to click on those reportable individuals because I'm curious for our barriers to employment. Let's say I'm just curious about our foster youth, right? And our foster youth are if ever flagged. So it's not even about a particular year that I'm looking at. It's just if they were ever flagged as foster youth. So I'm going to select this. Um, I'm going to stick on all, and I'm going to give you all this caveat. And I don't want to go too deep into it, but I would recommend, and it's going to be a little tedious. We do have another functionality that this might be easier, but it's going to require you to join tables. But that's something we can also explore in the future. But I'm going to stick with all because it's going to give me all my selections. And, if you're on a PC or if you're on a Mac, you're going to want to be able to locate your command or your control button because you're going to do multiple clicks and multiple selections because I'm looking at two institutions. I'm going to look at first Allen Hancock College. So I'm going to scroll down. And I know it's very small. I apologize. Let me see if I can maybe zoom this in a little bit. I think I could zoom in, but it's going to go. Yeah, zoom in. I'm sorry. Let's zoom in. Okay, I'm going to stick right there. Our Lompoc Unified is going to be an adult agency type, whereas our Allen Hancock College is going to be a community college. So I'm going to scroll down, and I know this because I know sort of the makeup of this, but I'm going to give you all some of the details. Our college is going to be the CC district. So Allen Hancock College, whenever you see college, it's going to be displayed there. Then our institutions are actually going to be our adult agencies, right? So we say institution, and I know you all might use adult agency a little bit more frequently, but we say institution because in this selection, as you can see, I'm hovering and showing institution. We actually have like K-12 schools also identified here. Again, we're going to continuously improve on this. So I think we'll kind of create some better indicators of like institution / K-12 school, just so you all know, or maybe / adult. So that way you all know. But I'm going to pick on Lompoc Unified right here. And I'm going to command select it. So I'm holding command and I'm selecting it. And then I'm going to go up. I'm going to go up to the college. So once you hover, you should see in just a bit, it's going to start saying college. You scroll up. So college. And then I'm going to select Allen Hancock, which will be all the way at the top. So let me bear with me for just a little bit. Allen Hancock College. I've selected both of those. We'll select all programs. And then this is where I'm going to get into those drill downs. So they're only going to be available for 200, but I'm going to select, I wanted to look at foster youth. So I'm going to say flagged, if ever flagged foster youth. And I think this is kind of beneficial, again, if you're taking sort of that role as a regional consortium lead, or you're just wanting to get like a regional overview. You don't have to look at consortiums. You can look at maybe by macro regions if you wanted. This is what's being represented. I know you all are seeing kind of like, oh, there's inconsistent lines. And that's because our data is being suppressed. So we're having less than 10 students in these certain cases, right? So 13 is above our 10 threshold. So it seems like in the prior years, 16 to 17, 17 to 18, 20, 21, so forth, right? You all can kind of read that from here. This would be Lompoc Unified is dropping under 10 participants in terms of foster youth reportable individuals. Again, this is meeting that if ever flagged as foster youth criteria, and then that criteria of reportable individuals. But I just wanted to showcase that really quickly, just so you all see sort of the functionality. It is at times, I think it could be a little wonky, but I'm trying to give you all some of the caveats that you all can kind of be aware of as you're doing some of this, like, across region analysis and aspects like that. I'm not going to take up too much time. I'm going to go through some of the rest of these. I want to show some of the 24-25 data like we had mentioned at the start, but giving you all sort of this 101 background of the data that we have available. I'm going to continue. These outcome metrics, again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. So, we had a lot of alignment with WIOA and CAEP. And the uniqueness of being able to meld two data sources such as CASAS and COMAS gives us the ability to look at outcome metrics that actually maybe sometimes occur, whether it's at the institution level or at the CC level. So again, aspects like meeting that chancellor's office vision for success is available for these, for these students. And again, um, just getting you all familiarized, we as a DataVista support and technical assistance team kind of um, speaking like number letter association. So I would always say like 619A is our attained chancellor's office vision for success. So just getting a little bit familiar with that, and you can kind of find what number slash character combination is attributed to what outcome in the MDD. But these are some of the outcome metrics that are associated for our participants. I was talking about reportable individuals earlier. We're now talking about participants, creating that nuance, right? We have information available across all 6 programs. So ABE, ASC, CTE, ESL, CSS, and AWD. Pre-apprenticeship, which we were just talking about, is actually a subset of a CTE program. And I'll show you where to find that right now. But for these 6 programs, and again, I'm going to jump back to DataVista in just a bit, but for these 6 programs, all of these metrics are available across all 6 programs. So, participants who took courses in more than one program area, or students with 1 to 11 level instructional contact hours, right? That's going to be available for all of these 6 programs. Now, there's one caveat. This will be sort of fixed very soon. But there is some limitations. This is actually a bug on the DataVista end, so nothing wrong with the data, just more so like the creation of how some of these metrics are displaying some of these subgroups, such as, career technical education, programs for adults with disabilities, and our child school success or I should say those programs currently are having this bug where they're not displaying metric information. So all these metrics that I'm listing here, if you were to select one of those and select one of those programs, you're going to have some limitations in seeing actual data for that. There is data there though. There is, and there's 24, 25 data there. There's 23, 24, so forth and so forth if you go back. But I'm just giving you all, maybe this is like a take behind slide if you wanted to look into maybe just CTE, ABE, ASE, any of those. That is located right into, I think I lost my Chrome. That is located right. I'm gonna go back actually. Actually, I think I have this loaded already. Let's see. I'll go back one more. It's gonna be located in the program, AE program area right here. So this is, I have obviously selections right now, so I need to go back to overall so that we can see all the programs repopulate. And I think I'm looking at reportable individuals, so there is some limitations on that. So information is going to be, let's just select CTE. This is one of the CTE sub-program pre-apprenticeship information. So we have the AE programs, right? Let me display them, sorry. Click on participants, should populate right here. I think I'm having some load issues. Okay, let me see if I reload this. Reload it here. Give me 1 second. And then I'll note the exact metrics for that, like sort of 7th pre-apprenticeship program.
Could you zoom in a little bit too for us,
Yeah,
Adriel?
sorry.
I think it was zoomed out when you were looking at the comparison view, but we
got you.
maybe even just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Debbie. So this is where the 6 programs are. If you wanted to go into this information on reportable individuals, which is our default, so 200, what I was just displaying with those barriers to employment. Information on these AE programs isn't available, but everything else besides 200A, well, the metrics that I displayed earlier in that slide deck are going to have. So if I looked at information, let's just say for ABE students, let's look at students with an enrollment in an adult education program who received services. And I'm going to speak in number letter combo right now. So that's 201A. Display that for these students. And again, I'm looking at ABE individuals will have that information. Now that pre-apprenticeship, if you wanted to locate what some of that information was, I'm actually going to go back to the dictionary. I'm going to filter by our adult learners. I'm going to look at, they are a sub set of this 123A, which is our career technical. So the pre-apprenticeship is going to be a subgroup of this CTE program disaggregation drill down. And that's going to be 124A. So we're going to have the ability to look at participants who were in workforce prep, participants who were in pre-apprenticeship training programs, if you want to search for 125A and 126A. Now, I hesitate to show that right now because we are having issues with the CTE drill down, viewing some of that data. It will get fixed, and our metric development team has worked on it, but currently right now, there's a little bit of limitation at looking at that. So I'm not going to display it for those cases, but so you all know, whenever we release, I think we should be releasing that update in terms of that fix either very soon, or we're going to have another release for DataVista 3.1 that's going to bring in new metrics, and at that time we'll have that as well. So I'm going to go a little bit quicker. I know we spent some time kind of going around DataVista, showing some functionality. We got new data. We got 24-25 data, but that doesn't mean that all of our metrics got 24-25 data. Aspects like, if I go really quickly, which you'll see in, actually, I'll stay on this slide. So we have information that's on our CAEP scorecard, because I've been showing you all a lot of the single metric, showing you some of that information. We do have some information that does lag a little bit. So there's some information that's provided for awards and employment for 24-25 data, and that's like, I think employment 2 quarters after is available. I think we have our information on students that obtained the GED is available for 24-25 data, but then some information such as like employment 4 quarters after or transfer is not really going to be available for 24-25. So you're gonna have to go back a year. And then additionally, there's like some information that actually isn't going to be able to populate until 22-23. So in general, this information is actually across DataVista is lagged a year. But in some cases, because we need either time for participants to matriculate, time to obtain employment outcome data, there's going to be some information that's a little bit lagged. So this is another like take behind slide so that all of you can kind of see this. And I'm going to get into at least what is available right now for 24-25. I'm not going to read through everything. I'm actually going to be quiet just for a little bit because I've been talking a bunch. And that way you can kind of see. So we have everything in circle is stayed within 5 years. Everything that's an arrow up is increased within 5%. Everything an arrow down is decreased by 5%. So giving you all some time to read through some of this. So for 24-25, it seems like a good majority of the progress from, and this is a statewide view, so statewide, you can look at your own locale, and maybe Debbie will possibly demonstrate single or CAEP scorecard in just a bit. But you can get an overview from a general standpoint of like, okay, what's stayed within 5% from the previous year. From a statewide perspective, it seems like our students, just in terms of reportable individuals, participants, immigration integration milestone, like that's all kind of staying within the same realm. You know, there's a 2% year over year difference, 3%, 4%, but nothing meeting that past 5 threshold. We're seeing some increases, you know, those that completed an educational functioning level gain, those that completed a non-workforce preparation, non-credit workforce preparation milestone, and those are increasing. And it looks like, you know, the educational functioning level gain is actually increasing by 10% over year. So that's actually very exciting. And then we are seeing a decrease. And maybe this is where I tell all of you to go back to your institutions and just like look at your local data. What did your outcome look like for individuals that earned an award? You know, diploma, GED, or high school equivalency. What's going on with those students? What are some of the barriers? You know, this could be just potential signage for you to take back to your institutions, work with your teams, and like, from a statewide perspective, are we with the trend of dropping and earned an award, or are we above the trend, or are we remaining within 5%, right? So that's the usefulness of the CAEP scorecard. there is that new 23-24 data, which I was just showcasing. So on your left-hand side right here, this is the same scorecard I was just showing. If you go back a year, you're going to see some new populated metrics. So we're going to see those transitions to post-secondary coursework and some of that employment data. So annual earnings, median change in earnings. Looks like the only one that kind of decreased this past year was median change in earnings, actually by 13% year over year, which is very interesting. And median annual earnings are kind of staying within that same, 1% increase. So within that 5% threshold. But employment's increasing, transition's increasing. Those are positives to at least think about. And then one more year back, one more. We're going to have our 24-25 data again on the left-hand side, and now everything's going to populate, and we're looking at like those that earned a post-secondary credential, right? So we're actually lagged because we're giving students, I should say, time to complete that information. So that's hence the time lag. So there is an increase in our adult learners that are, earning a post-secondary credential statewide. And then employment 4 quarters after exit, that's actually an increase of 9%, same with 2 quarters after exit. So seems like there is some traction going on there. I'm not going to paint the story that this is the case across all regions within California or even all institutions at all, but from a high level, statewide view, this is going on with some of our students. And I think it's then, which Debbie will showcase in just a little bit, up to you to utilize your data, utilize DataVista to then look at my analysis. Is my institution on par with this trends and analysis of what's going on at the statewide level? And maybe you don't even want to look at the statewide level. Maybe you want to look at the macro region level. I think that's another smart thing to do. It's going to have the context of your region. So giving you all sort of this information, and I'm essentially teeing it up a bit for our last portion to go into some demo cases. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to pass this over now to Debbie.
Thank you, Adriel. And I'm going to have you stop sharing so I can share my screen. My thing over here. So as Myra said earlier, my name is Debbie Pizzuto. I'm the Senior Program Associate for Adult Education, Post-Secondary Education, and Workforce Development at West Ed. Sorry, clearly I can't talk and do things at the same time. Anywho, so I, along with Megan McBride, are a part of your CAEP professional development team, and we work alongside the DataVista team. And one of the things that we do is we provide regional trainings and walk you through DataVista anytime you need it. We provide one-on-one support. So for some of the questions in the Q&A, I actually put my email address. I think it's on the last slide. But you can reach out anytime that you need help. We can set up a one-on-one for you or a one-on-one for your team, walk through everything that I'm about to do or anything that Adriel did. We can drag Adriel along with us too to show you what he was talking about with the comparison view. And we could just expand on what you're looking at, what's going on with your agency, your institution, or your consortium, and dig into the data a bit more with you. Excuse me. So first, we are in DataVista, and where we go first, typically, to look at the, well, not typically, every time when we want to look at the CAEP scorecard, we go right to reports and insights. Come on down to the CAEP scorecard down here at the bottom, and you'll notice that every page that you're on, here we go. I'm going to have to scroll, but I'd rather you guys be able to see the numbers. Are we looking good? Okay, no comments are good comments. On the right-hand side, you'll see the toolkit that has the metric definitions. So any page that you're on, you can open this up to take a look. To increase the page space, I get rid of the toolkit, as does Megan. If you can't see this, maybe Holly shout out or Myra shout out, let me know. In here on the scorecard, we are going to first look at participants. Anytime that you hover over, you can see the percentage, you can see the raw numbers, and then you can also drill down by the locale. So you can look at region. You can also pull up your individual institution or community college or your consortium. Have fun with that. You can look specifically at the AE program that you're focused on, but for today's purpose, I'm going to look at statewide and I'm going to look at everything. I want to click on participants because I want to see how we did post-COVID. Looks like we are bouncing back. Been a little bit slow. I know Adriel pointed that out on another metric. We're kind of seeing that slowing down, but still we've reached and exceeded our pre-COVID days. So I'm happy. I'm sure you're happy. Again, we can look at locale, we can drill down by the AE program. We can also look at age, ethnicity. We can look at a few different factors. We can look at all of them together. I'm not going to rehash that. Adriel showed you a minute ago. But I do want to show you when you look at options, you can look at the table. I like this view personally because even though I can hover over and see the percentage, I like it when I can see this as a table. This is great for a screenshot. I know you all are starting to work on your annual plans and we're all looking at our data. So if you're looking for a quick screenshot, it's there. The technical definitions are always on the bottom, no matter where you are. And now I want to go back and look at earned an award. We want to see how we're doing with our GED and high school equivalency. It looks like we're down a bit. Because I didn't put my table away, it stayed up. If I want to remove it, I can just by going here. And again, I can, if I want to just look at, maybe I just want to see what the ASE numbers are. I want to see how many of these ASE students have completed their GED or high school equivalency. Or maybe my adult basic education students. Oh, they're up a bit. Interesting. If you want to pull this information and doing a screenshot isn't giving you the quality that you're looking for, you can also extract it as a PDF and print it. This will give you a high quality PDF version. Now let's go back. If I click the back button on my browser, it will take me all the way back to the beginning, which is fine. I can get back. But if I use the back button here, it just takes me one step back so I don't lose all of the things I've been looking at. I also want to look at transition to post-secondary coursework, but you notice there's nothing there. And this is where those lagging metrics come in. So we need to go back a year to 23, 24. I can look at any of these years in here. When I click on transition to post-secondary coursework, I'll be able to see all of the years. But in order for me to click on it, first I have to go to 23, 24. Ta-da! There she is, transition to post-secondary coursework. Okay, not bad. We're getting stronger. We have not exceeded our pre-COVID years, but I like that we're seeing a steady increase. If I were a consortium director, I'd like to see where my consortium's been going and where we can improve. Again, all the same features for every page that we're on. I apologize, I'm going fast because we're running out of time. And oh, see, I did it. I hit the back button. That's all right. I can always find my way back. I am not smart enough to break the internet, guys. Okay, this last one I want to show you, I went to the scorecard, but actually I want to go to the single metric view because I want to look at transition to non-developmental coursework. Because I'm curious, say I'm a consortium director and I'm curious, I want to see how many of my students are actually transitioning to non-developmental college coursework. You can either go back to the main page on DataVista, or you can come up here to the drop downs and select single metric. We're going to find our CAEP adult learners. Close my toolkit because I have ADHD and that's too much information. And we're going to give it a second to load. There we go. Again, we have the same options where we can pull up the table, but if you notice on this, I don't have any of the raw numbers or any of the data up here that I can see on this. So when I go to options, I'm actually going to say show all labels because I like to see the information right there for a visual. And I'm also going to show the table. Now, when we're in single metric, this is where we can search for the exact metric that we're looking for. We come down, let me close that menu. When we come down over here to metric, you can type in anything. You can be a scroller or a searcher. Megan is a scroller, I'm a searcher. If you know the number of the metric that you're looking for, great. If you want to see participants, just put in 202 and you can find it. If you're looking for non-developmental college coursework, you can put in non-development. I put in non-dev and it popped right up. But for our sake, I know that it's 637. There's a lot of information, so sometimes it takes a minute. Transition to non-developmental credit college course. Excuse me. And that has exceeded pre-COVID days. That's fantastic. I want to see what's happening with our denominator too, though. I'd like to see, there may be an increase, but see, it's still at 7%. So technically it stayed the same, but the number of students has increased, so that's good. You can play around with this and search for any of the metrics that you're looking for that are specific to maybe your annual plans, or if you're just curious. There's also the compare option. If you need assistance with that, let us know. And for the single metric view, you can actually pull it as a CSV file and save it as an Excel file, so that you can see all of the information, maybe take a screenshot, use it wherever you need it. You can also do a PDF, which is a really nice view. Now, we looked at the data, the metric definitions dictionary, right here at a quick view. So if I wanted to see what this non-developmental metric was, I could pull it up. Ideally. Maybe say I want to do 202. You can also scroll down and see why there's no data. For some of our smaller consortiums, agencies, institutions, you might not have any data, or you may have gaps. And that is because anything under 10 students is going to be suppressed. So if you have really small student population, that's why you may have some information missing. Although if you notice something that's odd or out of the ordinary, you can contact the DataVista team. Eric put in the contact information in the Q&A, but I can also put it in the chat. So if you're having issues, here it is, DataVista at ccco.edu. We've got all of the C's. And if you're looking for some one-on-one assistance, if you'd like to share this training with your team and you'd like us to come talk to them via Zoom, you can call us anytime or email us anytime, and our information will be at the end of the slides. So now I'm going to stop sharing and send it back over to the always lovely Adriel.
All right, thank you, Debbie. I'm going to close this out, but I did see one question, so I'm just going to address this really quick because I know we're going to get into the Q&A portion anyway. Multiple selections, and you're saying multiple criteria, and I believe I didn't create this caveat at the start, but you can select multiple criteria. So, and by criteria, I'm meaning select multiple drill downs, multiple programs. Right now, it's only one program, but you can select multiple programs if there's more programs, and multiple locales, as I was displaying. You cannot select multiple metrics in the comparison view. So it does have to be one metric at a time, which I know can be tedious, and I understand that. However, that is why we actually, and I didn't get time to demo this. We have 5 minutes left, and I still am trying to find some time to answer some remaining questions. I apologize, but I'm going to point out one more thing. To be able to do a multiple metric analysis and have it like visually available to see, oh, what was 202A, what was 201A, you're actually going to want to utilize our bulk data download. Now, the bulk data download can give you every view on DataVista. You're probably all interested in the CAEP scorecard and the CAEP snapshot, which is a CAEP adult learners. Again, I'm trying to give you all the terminology so that you're, putting two and together. CAEP snapshot is going to be that single metric CAEP adult learners. The CAEP scorecard is going to be the scorecard that Debbie showed. So you could do that. You could select multiple years if you wanted to, and it's going to give you all the drill downs, all the locale that you select. So you can, again, when you're looking, let's say you're at an adult school, you want to do institution, because it's not going to say adult school, it's going to say institution. Just get familiar with that terminology. And then you're going to want to get it. So it's going to download. It's going to give you a CSV file. You're going to want to take whichever locale you're looking at. if you're just worried about your locale, let's just say you're at Antelope Valley College. I'm sorry if I messed up the name. I believe it's Antelope Valley College, and you just want to look year over year for multiple years, and you want to look at general admits or CAEP adult learners, you can do that here. The usefulness in this is you're actually able to get a CSV of a certain locale, certain year, certain view, and then append it. And this isn't going to be the same data. This is K-12 school, so I apologize. I had an example already. I lost it. I don't know where it went. But I do have another example. I saw the visibility in terms of accessibility, small font. I know, I'm sorry. I don't have I usually kind of like zoom out so I can see everything. So I apologize. But you can get your data, get your CSVs, append them. You don't have to join them because they're not different files. Like, all the drill downs and disaggregation and columns in this table are going to be the same for the next file, unless potentially you download K-12 schools, which might, or I should say K-12 SWP, which might have different information, which would be a little bit of a hard comparison, but doable. In that case, you would join, but you would append your data. So I'm kind of getting off topic. You would append your data. So in this case, I'm looking at a school, and then at the bottom of the information, at the top, I have the county. And then you can go ahead and create some pivot tables from this information. So right now I'm looking at just K-12 schools, and this is another quick and dirty. So I apologize. This isn't the same one that I had up, but you can see in the K-12 SWP report, we kind of have our metrics labeled as titles instead of numbers. So this is showing all the metrics on one graph, as opposed to, how we've seen it in the scorecard view with the indicators up and down. This actually displays them visually in terms of a bar graph. I could do a line graph too if I wanted to. But I wanted to answer that question by saying you can't select multiple criteria. And I think you're meaning criteria by meaning metrics, but the other criteria you can. But in the bulk data download, it takes a little bit more technical support, and we can provide that. You can do that. So long-winded answer to say no, but yes. And I think, are there any other questions, team? I'm inviting everyone else off the team and on the team right now to answer any other questions that we might have been waiting. I know we have a minute left.
Thank you, Adriel. It looks like a lot of the questions that came into the Q&A have been answered. Please continue to reach out if there are any additional questions that we can either answer in the next minute, or feel free to email. One item I wanted to bring up was, especially in this space, we're very well familiar with the CAEP fact sheets. We are working on getting those updated now that the latest data fiscal year 24-25 refresh is available. So we are working with our partners at West Ed to update the fact sheets. Please stay tuned. We will announce once the fact sheets have been updated and released, and there will be an additional webinar to walk you through. We're really excited. There are some really great enhancements that are being incorporated into the fact sheet, so stay tuned for that. Any other questions? It looks like it is officially 1 o'clock, so just want to thank you. And as we conclude today's webinar, continue to thank you for the work that you do to support adult learners across California. The work happening within our consortia, adult schools, and community colleges is making a meaningful impact in communities throughout the state. We really hope that today's session provided useful information and practical tools that you can take back to your local programs and teams. If additional questions come up after today's session, please feel free to email the DataVista contact that we have listed below for additional support. Megan or Debbie also mentioned that there are office hours available. Please reach out if you want some one-on-one assistance in navigating DataVista and trying to access your local data. And lastly, thank you again for your continued partnership, collaboration, and commitment to advancing adult education in California.
And if you would like to save the chat, you are welcome to click the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner of the chat box and choose Save Chat. and that will allow you to save all of the links that were provided. Thank you, Myra. Thank you, WestEd team. And thank you to the attendees. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Oh, it does not work. I will save the chat. Let me do that now. I have saved the chat and I will email it out to everyone who is in attendance. Thank you for letting us know. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Holly.
Bye.